FearHub.
This story takes place a few years back. I was 16 and my cousin, who was with me, was 21 at the time. We'll call him Jay. We are rural town boys, never really much to do. Jay and I grew up together, so we were very close and we always did everything together. One night, he decided to stay at my house with me while my parents were out of town. We didn't really do much. Made some food, played some video games, etc. It wasn't long before we got kind of bored. In the past, Jay and I had gone for night walks, just around the neighborhood, and we would just walk around and talk about stuff. Things that were bothering us, girls, whatever really came up. That particular night, Jay had suggested that we go for a night walk. He had a lot on his mind at the time, and as did I. So this walk was going to be a little longer than the usual ones. I live about 2 miles from our old middle school. However, it's not in the direction of the nearest town, so we don't ever see it. We had decided that we wanted to roam over there just to hang out and talk about our different times spent there, take a trip down memory lane. When we got there, we looked at the building through the chain link fence for a while. We sat there, pointed at stuff and telling each other stories for about half an hour. By this point, it had already been about 12:40 a.m. Jay had suggested that we hop the fence and sit down at the Ramada, a roof shelter that was closer to the school building but not quite close enough to the cameras that were attached to the building. I agreed with this idea as I wasn't really tired and still had more things on my mind to talk about. I remember walking over to the Ramada and seeing from a distance that the only camera facing the gym building had been broken and was hanging down pointed at the ground, which I remember thinking about kids playing wall ball and accidentally throwing a ball too high on occasion when I was at school, so I didn't think much of it. Jay and I sat there and talked for a while, and I had realized it was already 2 a.m. I was just about to say to him we should probably head back, when we heard a loud metal door of the gym suddenly open. There were windows in the doors for the gym, and there had been no lights on in there at any point. So it was pitch black in there the whole time we were there. We ducked down and peeked over the wall to see who was coming. The school had lights on all around the building, the Ramada did not. So we could see him very well, and we were hoping and thinking he couldn't see us. The man that walked out didn't look like anyone we recognized in our time there, nor did he look like he ever belonged there at all. He was a very dirty, ragged-looking man. Long hair, probably about shoulder length, and he was wearing a black hoodie with the hood up. We tried as hard as we could to not move or make any noise as we watched this man walk out, look up at the sky, take a deep breath, and then walk behind the school's tool shed, which was about 15 feet to the left of the door he came out of. Upon getting behind there, he let out a sound I can only describe as a growl, and then we heard a loud bang almost as if he punched the back of the shed. Jay and I gave each other a what the heck look before whispering to each other, we need to hop a different fence and get out because he would see us jumping the one we jumped to get in. We looked back and he was already back by the gym door. We crouch walked out of the Ramada and a little ways out before we decided to stand up and make a mad dash to the way of farther out fence. When we got to the fence, we looked back and didn't see the man anymore. Jay hopped the fence, and as I was climbing up, I heard him say, "Oh shoot, hurry up," as he jumped onto the fence and grabbed my jacket to tug me upwards. When I got up top and was dropping on the other side, I looked back to see the man had circled around and was only a few yards away from us with something in his hand. My skin started crawling. I was sure he was holding a hammer. He had stopped when I got over the fence and was just staring at us. But then, as we started to jog away, we looked back and saw him sprint to the fence and hop it a lot faster than we did. Upon seeing this, we began to sprint as fast as we could until we got to my house. We had taken a longer way with more turns and had lost them very early on. We made sure everything was locked in our house, grabbed one of my dad's guns and the 2 dogs, and we slept in my room. Nothing happened that night, so we did lose him for sure. We never did find out who was there or why. But we never went there on a night walk ever again. That's for sure. This happened during the summer of 2015, and I had just graduated high school, and I still lived in my hometown. I was out with some friends, and it was getting really late, like around 1 a.m., so I decided to head home. I stopped by a drugstore close to my house that was 24/7 to pick up some aspirin and snacks. The one I went to was in the same parking lot as a supermarket. This is important for later. I parked my car close to the store and it was empty. There were 2 other cars in this giant parking lot, and I was nowhere near them. I head in and grab what I came to get quickly because I had this overwhelming feeling of dread this whole time. I felt like someone was watching me, but I couldn't see anyone else there besides me and the cashier. Then after I'd gotten everything I intended to buy, I stalled checking out and just went aisle by aisle looking at random things because I thought whoever was out there would leave if I took too long. After 20 minutes of that, I pay and leave the store. I get to the door and literally bolt to my car, pepper spray in hand, and lock myself in. I turned my head to check the back seat, and right before I could breathe a sigh of relief, because no one was there, someone tapped on my window. I looked around before I left the store near the entrance, and no one was around my car. So how did I not see a person there? This is where I was really freaked out. I don't know if this person was Ted Bundy inspired or what, but this was odd. He was a very handsome blonde man with slightly long hair and a cast on his arm. Now my first instinct was to drive off, but he was leaning on the front hood part of my car, and I didn't want to hurt him, so I rolled my window down just an inch so he could speak, and maybe back up just a bit so I could drive off without hitting him. But nope, he stayed glued on my car. He then asked me if I could help him with directions and look up an address for him. I said, I really need to go, sir. Maybe ask in the drugstore, they can help. Already went to the supermarket and they couldn't help. That place closed at 8, and there was no way this guy had just been lurking around for 5 hours, waiting for some random girl's help. He then went on about feeling really tired, and if I could just give him water or food I bought since he had no money. I told him okay, and began to reach to my passenger side, grab the chips and began to roll the window down slightly. And like I expected, he moved closer to my window, but he was now off the car, so I hit the gas. He chased my car. I heard a scraping sound on the side as I pulled away. I didn't drive directly home in case I was followed, and drove down the highway for an hour because I was so distraught over what happened. I finally got home, and my entire side of my car had been scraped, from the door almost to the trunk. I am really sure he used a knife or some sharp object because it was a really deep gouge. I reported the incident, but they never found him or any similar incidents in my town. He was watching me the whole time, maybe from the windows of the store, because how else would he have known I bought food? I also think he hid behind my car, so I couldn't see him when I came out. I feel like he was trying to get me before I got in my car, but I got in too fast. So, creep in the parking lot. Let's not meet again. I was a stubborn and precocious teen. At age 15, I had a lot of friends, but I was a bit of a loner, and enjoyed long walks in nature. Very long walks, in fact, sometimes 10 plus miles. Since I couldn't drive yet, I would often just take off from my house and walk on back roads all day long. This was before smartphones. As I was a 100-pound, very tiny girl, my parents probably shouldn't have allowed it. But they have always been very relaxed in their parenting, but like I said, I was stubborn. I also had an unhealthy attitude of invulnerability and naivety. On these walks, people would often pull over and ask me if I needed a ride. The vast majority were men. I never said yes. Usually I would respond politely with, "No thank you, I'm on a walk," and they would leave me alone. Maybe after, "Are you sure?" and a concerned look at most. This happened literally hundreds of times without incident. However, there was one time that I got a bit lost while walking. Not severely lost, as I could easily backtrack the 5 or 6 miles home, but I had taken a wrong turn and wandered into a very rural area that I had not expected to be in. It was a nice day, however, so I kept walking. A guy in his early 30s, a bit of a junky car, passed by and asked if I needed a ride, as per usual. I politely declined, and he drove on. I got creepy vibes, but didn't think much of it. Then, 10 minutes later, he pulled up behind me again. This was a rural road, and he must have driven in a very large loop to come up behind me again, miles out of the way. He slowly started driving alongside me while I walked and asked very personal questions such as my name, my age, and where I lived. I obviously didn't tell him the truth. He also repeatedly tried to get me to get into his car. I was very uncomfortable and just wanted him to go away, but was too afraid to be rude. However, I was not getting in that car. After an excruciating 5 minutes or so of another car came, and he was forced to drive off again. I was more annoyed than scared at this point. That good old and vulnerable attitude. Then, like clockwork, 10 minutes later, to my horror, I see that car again. This time, he didn't drive alongside me, but instead parked a few feet ahead of me at the side of the road. I don't know what came over me, but instead of panic, my brain just shut down and I became entirely dissociative. I decided to just ignore him. I walked by the car calmly, continuing my walk. I tried not to look at him, but I stole a glance. He was pointing something at me. It was a gun. Before I had time to react or even think, a motorcycle pulled up behind us and parked. My stalker seemed extremely panicked by this and peeled out as quickly as possible. I must have looked freaked out because the motorcyclist, who looked like a dad type, was concerned. He asked me if I was okay and if I needed a ride. I gave my usual "no thank you, I'm on a walk," and he drove off. I was feeling pretty distrusted at that point. And aside from that, I didn't want to climb onto a motorcycle with anyone. Even though he had saved me from something potentially very bad, looking back, I owe quite a lot to him. I'm not sure what compelled him to stop, but thank goodness he did. I then ran the long distance home, looking over my shoulder the whole way. I never saw the man again. I didn't tell my parents because I was afraid of them restricting my freedom. I still took my long walks, but not again in that area, until a popular nature reserve was opened 3 years later. To the creepy guy who really wanted me to get in his car, let's not meet. Thanks everyone for tuning into this video. This has been Diablo Vocals, and hope to catch you in the next video.